Welcome back to PR After Hours. I'm your host, Alex Greenwood, bringing you your weekly cocktail of PR and marketing tips that will help you and your business. Okay, you really didn't think I was going to let the year end and not say farewell to this abysmal 2020 and welcome to 2021. Well, here I am. I always give myself a little bit of an out. I've been doing this since I've owned my agency the past, 11 years as of January. I've always given myself the last 10 days or so of the year to reflect, clean up my office, just to take my time, but I'm a little bit ahead of the game on that. And so I thought, why don't I look at something that's very near and dear to me and share it with you real quick. And there's two parts today. First of all, there are some great PR books for people out there. If you're a PR professional or you're just interested in PR or you want to learn how to do PR for yourself or your own business, whatever. And it was so great because I checked out on bookauthority.org the best PR books to read in 2021. And number one, my gosh, my friend Mark Witt, who appeared for 2 episodes of our show, just a delightful man, a great PR professional, and he wrote, of course, a great book. Number 1 on the countdown, PR lessons learned along the way, strategies, tips, and advice for the higher ed and nonprofit PR professionals. So Mark is right there at the top, and just need do nothing more than listen to the 2 episodes he did with us here this year on PR After Hours. Links in the show notes to find out why. And of course, we'll have a link in the show notes for you to order Mark's great book. It's a great book, particularly if you're in higher ed, but it doesn't matter what sector you're in. It's just some great stuff about doing public relations right. So I highly recommend it. Congrats, Mark, on getting to number 1. My goodness, it's well earned, well deserved. Someday I'm going to write a book. I hope to get in the top 100, let alone number 1, with my PR thoughts, etc. Okay, right under Mark was the new rules of marketing and PR, how to use content marketing, podcasting, social media, AI, live video, and newsjacking to reach buyers directly. Sounds like a very practical guide, doesn't it? It's the 7th edition of the Pioneering Guide to Generating Attention for Your Idea or Business, packed with new and updated info in the digital age. Marketing tactics seem to change on a day-to-day basis, right? So as the ways we communicate continue to evolve, keeping pace with the latest trends in social media, the newest online videos, the latest mobile apps, and all the other high-tech influences can seem an almost impossible task. So this book goes into ways to turn this to your advantage. So I would just say to you, I am adding this one to my list. I'm going to probably order this one myself. I need to brush up on a lot of this stuff here. Under that one, again on bookauthority.org, number 3, barriers hindering effective internal communication, PR in business. And that looks like a really good one. Employees are a label for a company. It can be either advocates fighting for the best name of the company or prosecutors plunging it in calamity. The responsibility of guiding employees in the proper direction rests on the shoulders of internal communication. Okay, so that one looks like another one to add to my list too. Any business, if you're not a PR person but you're an HR person, I would recommend you add this to your bookshelf and read it. Right under that, number 4, Public Relations and Media by Matthew Knowles, PhD. The field of PR is as old as media itself, and yet thanks to technology, it has changed and continues to evolve with the time. So this book is all about PR strategies for the digital age. Oh, here's a good one I'm really interested in too. Number 5 is Media Relations Writing, a guide for PR pros. I cannot tell you how many times I've said it on the show. If you listened, you know, but how many times I've had to tell people as interns or people who work with me or contractors or even clients, writing is a foundational skill for the public relations professional. If you can't write well, you're going to have a tough time, in my opinion. So I like this, Media Relations Writing. This looks like a great book to help with some instruction on how to write a little better at the very least. So that looks good. Number 6 is The Global PR Revolution, How Thought Leaders Succeed in Transformed World of PR by Maxim Behar. That looks interesting. Again, there'll be a link in the show notes to all this stuff. Everyday Public Relations for Lawyers. Oh, wow. Number 7 there on the list. This is very interesting to me because when I do crisis communication planning and discussions and talks, and by the way, I just booked another talk. I'll be speaking online to the PRSA, no, it's the IABC, excuse me, of Topeka, Kansas. I'll be speaking about Crisis to their luncheon in February or March, not sure which one, and probably will be, of course, virtual because of COVID, but I'm very honored to be asked to speak. But I always talk about, in my talks, about the gulf that can form between PR and lawyers during a crisis situation. So this looks like one I need to look into to see what this lawyer, Gina F. Rubel, is telling lawyers about how to handle PR. So that's very interesting. Below that one, content marketing for PR, how to build brand visibility, influence, and trust in today's social age. Also looks like a winner. Number 9, strategic communications for PR, social media, and marketing communications here. Interesting. Number 10, Public Sector Marketing Pro, the definitive guide to digital marketing and social media for government and public sector. Very interesting. Okay, there's several more here on the list. There's 17 they've listed, as a matter of fact, but they all look like they'd be fantastic. Here's number 16, free PR, how to get chased by the press without hiring a PR firm. Now, why would anybody want to read that? I'm just kidding. No, that fascinates me too. You know, I've told people this before. I've had people contact me over the years and say, I think we need a PR firm. And actually, you know what? Every now and then their story just sold themselves and they didn't have a lot of budget. And I just said, look, let me guide you for an hour or two here on this. You can pay me with lunch or something. And but here's what you ought to do. And it's worked a few times. So, you know, I'm not a PR person who is averse to people trying to do it themselves. Generally, though, if the story's not there and they don't have a path to getting that story told, it's just going to be very tough. And that's where guys like me come in. So I'll check that book out too. And then the number 17 book on Book Authority for PR books this year, Straight Talk About Public Relations, the revised edition, New Strategies on Social Media and Content Marketing from Robert Wynn. You know, the blurring of the lines between PR and content marketing is I don't think it's a blur anymore. It's just completely, they're meshed. And that's why we offer content marketing services with our partners at Family Features. And I think a book like that could be very beneficial for people, no matter what your job title would be when it comes to marketing or spreading awareness about your firm or your product or your idea. So wow. You know, I talk about writing. Maybe I should talk about talking a little better. That is the 17 best new PR books to read in 2021. Again, congrats to number 1, Mark Witt, my former guest on the show and a friend. And by the way, I'm supposed to speak to his class at the University of Kentucky next year about Crisis, so I'm excited about that. But congrats on being number 1, Mark. There'll be a link to Mark's book directly in the show notes, and then the rest of these I'll include a link just to this article. All right, I'll be back in just a minute with just a few wrap-up ideas and a few things to say about 2020 and 2021. Hello, listeners. It's me, Alex, from PR After Hours. I hope you're enjoying the show so far. And I wanted to talk to you just for a moment about the way I get this show right into your earbuds every week. It's because I use Anchor FM. Now, I've told you previously that I've been podcasting since 2006, back when we used stone knives and bear skins and a couple of Dixie cups and string. Anchor FM has really streamlined this and made it simpler for people who don't know the first thing about setting up a podcast or don't have, time to learn all the pro tools and stuff, because it's all right here. First thing it's important to know is it's free. There are certain tools that will allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will then distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. That's huge. Distribution is a big pain in the butt, to be honest with you, so it's really great Anchor FM can do that for you, and you're not paying hosting fees. That adds up every month. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started, and be sure to join me in the virtual cocktail lounge on PR After Hours. I am frequently stunned by how well received this podcast has been. When I first started, I've told you this before, I thought it would be a good way just to share a few things I know, things I've learned, and also share things I'm interested in, like the previous segment where I share books that I think PR people and others should read. But there's a whole lot of screaming into the void with podcasting, and also, if you've listened at with any frequency, that I've been podcasting off and on since 2006. And I just figured, well, this will be a nice little niche show. And maybe I'll have some things to offer and people will listen here and there, but it's actually exceeded all expectations. Now, am I Joe Rogan? No, I don't have millions of listeners, nor do I think I ever will, but I've had a very robust audience. And more than that, I have had the honor of speaking to true leaders in the PR profession. And it's getting to where they're calling me instead of me calling them. It's not that I don't want them. It's just that I'm getting contacted first by leaders in the profession who want to be on the show, which really is gratifying. Of course, that doesn't mean I'm still not pitching to people like Mark Witt, author of that great book we mentioned, his number one PR book of the year. But I reached out to him on Twitter, and he and I got going, and we made it happen. And a new friend and a new colleague situation, new friend and new colleague relationship has been born there. But I'm just looking back, and I mean, we're not on our anniversary show. Our anniversary technically was January 24th of 2020, but it was our first episode, which still is, I guess, mostly by virtue of being first, but maybe not. Are you ready for the inevitable PR crisis? That episode, 15 minutes and 36 seconds of me talking about why you need a crisis communications plan. That one has done extremely well on listenership all year round. People continue to download that one. And it's my bread and butter episode. It's the stuff I do the most these days, crisis comm planning. And I was just thrilled to have an opportunity to talk about it in depth on that episode. And it still does quite well. And then I did some quick shots, I call quick shots since we're in the virtual lounge. Like I poured you out a little shot about storytelling and then inbound marketing and PR. And then our first guest came in February, and it was Bob Martin, marketer. Guy's had rich history of being a marketer. Very smart guy. He is a managing partner of some really solid, really exciting co-working spaces here in the Kansas City market. Just a great guy, good friend. I was a little bummed. I went to him with my gear and sat in his studio to record it, and my mic started futzing out. Didn't know, and I had to clean it up. So the sound quality suffered a little bit, but it's still done quite well on downloads. And so Bob Martin will always be the first guest on PR After Hours, the first actual person in the the virtual lounge. And, then we did some good ones on Make Money While You Sleep, Finding Next Big Idea. And that's where we interviewed my friend Mike Brown with the Brain Zooming Group, Predicting the Unpredictable with Mike Brown. We did a great interview with him, which has done really well. But anyway, we have done now close to 100 episodes. I think we'll hit 100 by the actual anniversary date, or if we're not at 100, we're going to be darn close. I hope I'm right about that. But I'm very excited here. Season 2 is going to continue once we get over this break, and then we'll be going into season 3 in the spring. We'll take a minor break, but you'll be happy to know, if you're a frequent listener of the show, we have guests scheduled for the next almost 3 months. And that's been great too. I had to actually, I think I mentioned this in a previous episode before the holidays kicked in, that I actually had to change how I booked the show, because the demand has been such that I was having a hard time kind of getting into a workflow with my own work and my own personal schedule, because I would just kind of use Calendly and say, okay, here's my calendar, go. And people would just pick stuff. And I foolishly had never thought about, well, yeah, maybe you should create windows during the week when you're doing recording. That way you can get your research done in the morning, and then you can do the recordings for like between 11 and 2 or whatever. And then maybe 2 or 3 days a week you do that. And then that way that's done. And then you can go and schedule some time during the week for production and editing and promotion. And then, so that's helped me tremendously. And it's been tough though, because I have a lot of publicists, God bless them, because they're part of our PR family, contacting me. And a lot of them, since they've had people on the show before, they go around the scheduling and just start saying, well, we have a date. We'd be good on this date. I'm like, here's my calendar, see what you can do. Anyway, it's been fun, but I've learned a lot about that. But we've done a lot on crisis. We've done a lot on general PR, and I've tried to keep the show at a level where, not assuming you as a listener know everything about PR. I assume you're listening as a professional, because you realize that as a professional, we all have our practices, and we all have our specialties within the practice, and we all have our strengths and weaknesses. And so I just try to assume that maybe you may know all there is to know about, let's say, writing a press release, but maybe you know next to nothing about managing a crisis, or maybe you know everything there is about being a book publicist, but know next to nothing about working at an actual big agency, that kind of stuff. So I try to just always come from that angle and operate that way. And that's why we've had some great guests who have been with agencies, large and small. I have a lot of people on the horizon here, a lot of authors who have spoken to us and talked about their stuff. I want to get a lot more of these authors that I probably rattled off in the last segment. I want to talk to folks who write books like that, who both improve and boost the profession. So I'd like to get some more folks like that on there. So big year next year. We're going to talk to a lot of movers and shakers, and we're going to try to keep it timely and pithy and fun. And I am very, very open, though, to suggestions for guests. I'm also open for suggestions for content. I'm open for suggestions for things. Hey, Alex, we'd rather you stop doing this. We would rather listen to you do shows about this, maybe no more shows about this or fewer shows about that. Happy to hear that. Easy way to get a hold of me is prafterhours.com. Let me just check that again and make sure it's still up. I haven't heard from you guys in a while. I think it's because of the holidays and I've been quiet. prafterhours.com. Go there and there's a contact section. And all you do, go to prafterhours.com, scroll down, and you can listen. It'll show you all the show notes for the entire series. The entire archive is there. You can click there. There's a little bit more about me than you probably care to know. Then you can listen free on all the platforms. So there's links to all the show platforms where you can listen to it. Different like Overcast, Radio Public, Google Podcasts, Breaker, Apple Podcasts, of course, Spotify, Pocket Cast, and of course Anchor. And then there's a way to get in touch with us. If you have a question, just click there and on the Contact Us page, and your name, your email, your phone number, if you would, if you need to, and then you can just plug in there what you want to ask, and then you hit send. And don't forget to sign up for our email list when you do that and you ask your question. That way you never miss an episode. Well, anyway, the virtual lounge is getting ready to close. It's a very nasty, blustery winter day, and it's a couple of days until the actual twilight of the year. Looking forward to getting 2020 behind us. I understand that when the clock rings, midnight on 2020 or in December, you know what I'm saying, on the last moments of 2020, that doesn't mean that everything's just going to magically become okay and perfect, but I think psychologically it will benefit us all to be out from under 2020. I think 2021 is going to have its own share of crises and challenges, but I'm very, very hopeful that it will be better than 2020. I mean, really, I guess I shouldn't say this, but I will. But could it really be much worse? Could it really? My business has taken a hit. I've had friends and family get ill from COVID. Thankfully, I've not lost anyone very close to me that I knew. But I mean, I feel very bad for people in my community who are suffering. The damage to our economy, due to COVID and mismanagement of COVID has been epic. It's just all these horrible things. So I'm just of the mind that let's try and clean slate this thing as best we can. We're going to have new leadership next year. We're going to have vaccines hitting the population full force. We're going to have a lot of things, I think, that can help us turn things around. And I hope you will join me here on PR After Hours as I share information about ways to tell your story. Whether you're a PR person or a marketer, or you own a business, a small business, or you're an entrepreneur, if there's ways that you can learn to tell your story from PR After Hours, I hope you will tune in, and I hope you will share this with people. And of course, I hope you'll give us a review. A 5-star review on Apple Podcasts would go a long way towards us getting new listeners. All right. Until next time, as I said, the virtual lounge the lights are flickering. That's the you got to go home. You can't you can. That's the saying. My gosh, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. But actually, in the time of a pandemic, you should probably stay home. All right. I'm gonna stop talking now and just tell you it's been an honor that you've listened to us here on PR After Hours. We'll see you next year. And don't forget to sign up at prafterhours.com so you never miss an episode, and let me know how I'm doing and what I can do to make this show even better for you. Take good care. Oh, you know what that means? Looks like it's last call here at your virtual lounge for PR news, views, and interviews. Don't forget, you can ask me a question anytime. You can do it through our Twitter account, which is @HoursPR, or Even better, you can send me a message vocally. I would love to hear your voice, and I'll answer it on the show. There's a link in the show notes. All you have to do is sign up through Anchor FM. It's free, doesn't take long, and you record your message. I get the message. I will play your audio. Just give me your first name and the city you live in, and then I will answer the question to the best of my ability right here on the show. Don't forget to, if you're enjoying this podcast, you can support it and help increase the frequency and value of the show. Just consider being a sponsor for your brand or your agency or just yourself because you're like, I like this show. Or just drop a few coins in the virtual tip jar. Either way, there's links in the show notes. Please check that out. All of that, of course, being in the show notes where you're listening right now or at prafterhours.com. I see that they're turning up the lights. Last call is over, and I've got to clean up this virtual lounge. And until next time, I'm Alex Greenwood, and you've been listening to PR After Hours on Anchor FM.